Welcome to Made in Walker, the podcast that connects you to the people, the stories, and the ideas shaping our community. From local innovators to everyday change makers, we're diving deep into what makes Walker a great place to live, work, and grow. Here's your host, Nicole DiDonato.
Very few businesses make it to third generation, and fewer still do it while continuing to grow, adapt, and also staying relevant with their customers and community. I'm joined by the third generation owners of Noordyk Business Equipment. They are a Walker-based business that is celebrating 80 years in 2026. Kara and Will, thank you both for joining us for this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Glad we could be here.
Yeah, Will, you're just your return guest. You were here about a year ago, just giving us the backstory. Kara, we're certainly happy to have you here with this episode. Yeah. So can't really take us back to 1946.
Not quite.
Really something that you were there for. But just your grandfather had started this 1946 in a basement right after World War II. Why do you think he had the urge to want to really dive into being a business owner and then to really look at repairing typewriters?
So his involvement in World War II was actually with repairing typewriters, right?
Yeah.
And then I think just the times back then are different than they are now. That was what you did, is you had a skill set, you started a business with it. So he did. He started it out of his parents' basement, grew it throughout the years, and eventually got my dad involved. Eventually got mom involved when they got married.
Yeah.
And then...
So he took it over my dad took it over from grandpa in the 80s and kind of grew it into the digital world that it is now, to the copiers and printers. So kind of outgrew the typewriters, and that skill set is not needed quite as much anymore.
No.
Of course. What do you think were some of the values that he really started his business on that you think you still kind of embody today?
Sure. Grandpa's definitely a faith-based man. So all in his life, that was the driving factor. And I think that is what attracted employees to him. I think that's what attracted customers to him. And I think that's the core of what we do today. Our purpose here on life is, how can we glorify Jesus? How can we bring people to Jesus? And I think that in the words that we choose and how we speak to our customers and how we speak to our employees, the policies that we set when we set them, the actions, everything that we do, if we can get one encounter with someone to share the gospel with them, that's a great day. Yeah. And if we can sell copiers along with that, that's an even better day.
Yes. Grandpa's dad was actually a pastor too. So it was just kind of something that's always been instilled in the family, whether it was from grandpa down to our dad and to us. We went to private schools growing up. So just a big part of our values. So,
and able to still continuing that generations. And decades later.
Yep.
So obviously a lot has changed. Will, you kind of touched on this a little bit, starting from your typewriters all the way to the electronics that we see today. What has that whirlwind been like? You haven't really seen the whole progression, but just in your tenure, what have you noticed has changed?
Yeah. When you talk about copiers and printers, not a whole lot has changed. They're printing as fast as they can. And if you look at one 20 years ago, they look pretty similar. And the technology is, from what you can see, is all pretty similar. But what's changed is kind of the software on the back end, or the security on the back end. So even though to the normal user walking up to it, it's the same machine, knowing how the internals are affected with technology and new computers on a day-to-day basis, we've kind of had to adapt and learn what that looks like, and to be able to adapt with that. So.
Especially nowadays, I think a lot of AI is getting into that world, right? And how can we automate systems, make people more efficient while still using copiers and printers? You're still printing, you're not going paperless, but you're able to utilize the AI systems that are out there to then automate your process and just make your business more efficient.
That's incredible to see that progression from decades ago to now. You think your grandfather would have just imagined that he would have kept this company sustained for so many years?
I think the shock that's in our dad's words and face when he realizes it, no, I don't think he would have ever imagined it.
I don't think so either. And especially, she touched on it too, with a lot of companies trying to go paperless. So that, that brings a change of technology. But again, with the AI, so if you're going paperless, you got to scan the documents in. So there's a big part of the copier and printers is the scanning. So I don't think they could have foreseen that even being a thing back when a typewriter was around. No. So yeah, for him to, it'd be pretty far out for him.
What does your dad kind of think, or what does he tell you about the changes he's seen?
With the technology?
Yeah.
I don't know that he really fully
Yeah,
anymore.
No, he's pretty stepped out of it. So I mean, he's happy to see that we're involved, but as long as we keep selling, he doesn't really care what it is. So
Yes.
He doesn't have to deal with printing papers or a whole lot of technology himself. So he trusts that he's got the right people in place that want to be involved in the technology changes, so he doesn't have to.
It's definitely a different world than, when my dad was really in it, it was buying used machines, fixing them up and selling them. So to go from that to now what we're dealing with, where a lot of it is software driven, and what software can our printers and copiers work with that our customers need. Even you talk about change from typewriters to now, even from when our dad was in it 20 years ago to now, it's night and day difference.
Yes. And I did forget to specify, you guys are siblings.
We are.
So, yes. And so, was it always the plan to take over? Sometimes we were talking off camera a little bit, just sometimes it's tough nowadays to maybe get children to want to take over their parents' businesses, or maybe they do sell out of necessity. But what was it like for you?
It was not ever the plan. I think it was always maybe a hope of our parents that we would maybe step into it. But I went to college thinking I was going to go into the healthcare field, got married, and then ended up just moving back this way and took a job with the company because I was trying to figure out my way, and then liked it and stuck. And then kind of similar story for you.
Yeah. So I remember as a kid, it was always, you're going to take over the family business. And as I got into middle school and high school, it was like, I wasn't a very technology based kid. I didn't want anything to really do with copiers and printers. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't fun. I had a big interest in automotive. So I was actually a mechanic for about 7 years before I got into this. That became tough on the body, and decided I want to change. I really liked working with people, and there was a sales position open at our company. So I talked to my parents. I said, can I apply? And they're like, yeah, you got to go through the interview process just like everybody else, but there's an opening, so sure. So they were really excited to hear that, and even more excited that I got through the interview process. But yeah, no, it was definitely not on my radar until, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. So
let's be real. There's nothing sexy about copiers and printers, right? Thinking about that as a teenager or like college student, you're like, okay, is this really what I want to do? Not knowing the benefits or the pros of owning a company and be able to drive that. I don't think it's anything either of us were setting our goals on.
Yes, yes. And did your parents kind of give you life lessons, business lessons about this, or is it something you just had to figure out on your own, basically?
I think it's a lot of how we grew up. They were very transparent, and we are, I think, that way. They were that way with the company, with employees. We are as well, but they were that way with us at home, right? It was always talking shop. It was always talking business, financial advice, and just life advice, I think, rolls over a lot into it. Would you agree?
Yeah. And to go off that, every family vacation for our elementary years was always a business trip that Dad needed to take. So, Dad had to go here to pick up this. So let's make a vacation out of it and stop at a museum here or there. But yeah, some things that were always coming out of Dad's mouth was buy low, sell high, and as a kid, you hear that and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But, to translate that to him giving us a business lesson, I don't know if that was his plan or just kind of his day-to-day speak. So
yes. And any lessons or that you learned along the way that you're grateful for, kind of looking back? I know there's probably been some times where businesses has shifted, or you've had to kind of adapt with COVID and such. What did that sort of teach you?
Yeah. COVID, you could probably speak to. You were still selling actively at that point.
Yeah.
With the lessons we learned there.
Yeah. So just COVID brought a lot of changes. There was just a lot of changes on us taking over. One of the big ones was how we hired salespeople, how we hired service techs, how we just hired employees in general. Kind of stopped looking at it as a process and looked at it more of as a culture, and really just changed our interview process to fit the culture rather than to find somebody that checked all the boxes to fit the process.
Finding people that fit with our company values, fit with the culture we have. Because you can find the right person, you can teach. You can pretty much teach anyone to do anything, right? So
the right cultured people tend to stick around longer. Mm-hmm. So if we can focus on that, that's going to give us ease of operating in the future with less hiring for the people that stick around longer. And just realizing that was big.
Mm-hmm. So. I think the other thing that comes to my mind when you ask that question is in the beginning of 23, we acquired another company in Lansing. And that is not something that our grandpa had done. It's not something that our parents had done. So that was new and heavily put on us, right? So navigating, what does that look like? How do you run an office that's in your hometown and also an office that's in an hour-ish away. We kept a lot of the employees that were with that company on. So how do you bring them up to speed to how Noordyk does things? Because we do things a lot different from our competitors.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So I think we're still learning in that respect, but I think we've learned a lot and we're going the right direction with it.
Yeah. And that does lead me to one other question too. Family-owned business, generations old. What is it that you are able to offer to customers that they can't really get at a bigger industry?
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's really just the personal touch. I know without naming names, a lot of our competitors have gone to like an 800 number. So when you call, you either get, a robot phone to get you to the right department or one person transfers you to the next. I can tell you if you call our shop in Lansing, you're going to talk to Chris 9 times out of 10. If you call our shop in Grand Rapids, it's going to be probably Lisa or maybe Matt. So you're always going to have a person to talk to. And then our salespeople really take more of a client-centric approach. We get people that email us all the time, almost every day, and say, hey, we need a quote on this. And we aren't the type of company that's just going to fire off a quote and see what sticks to the wall. Our salesmen want to go meet with the company, see what they're doing, understand their business, understand their workflow, and then we can either make recommendations, help them, guide them in the right direction for something that they might not know exists. And I just don't see that happening with our competitors. A lot of times we'll go out, especially the ones that are farther away from Grand Rapids, that aren't within 10 or 15 minute drive from downtown here. A lot of the other salesmen don't want to go that far out. So our guys will go out, they'll spend the time, really do a deep dive on what your company's doing and try and understand their workflow and everything before we really make any recommendations. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that sets us apart.
Building that trust, transparency.
100%. Yeah. And service. I think that's a big part of it as well, is you're talking to a real person on the phone when you call, and being a smaller business, we're able to make those on-the-fly decisions that maybe other companies, if they're larger, have to run up the ladder to get the approval for, right? So I know I ran toner out to a customer the other day because they needed it and it was important and needed to get done, right? So I think that sets us apart as well, is we're there building those relationships with our customers. They're not just another number. We truly care, about them getting what they need from us in order to operate their business. And not everyone's super excited about copiers and printers. It's a necessary part of a business, but if we can make that not stressful, that's what we aim to do.
Yes, of course. Mm-hmm. Like that, that approach there and that mindset. So looking ahead, do you even think about where you will go in 10, 20 years, just what the next generation of Noordyk looks like?
So, we want to keep growing. We want to fill in the gaps in between here in Lansing, just so that we have a good customer base all the way through and that our service techs can be anywhere in the state and service any customer needed. I know she's got 4 kids. I don't, but I've heard my oldest niece ask, when can I work for you guys?
Yeah. We shot a marketing video at work the other day, and we actually brought in like an old typewriter, and it was hilarious to watch the kids have no idea what it is. How do you use it? What was this for? But yeah, just to see the excitement that they're like, oh, when I work here and they're talking about salesmen that we currently have, they'll still be here. And I'm like, well, I don't know that that's going to happen, but just that they, that thought is in their head that like, maybe this would happen, maybe. And then for us to talk about it and think about it, it's like, wow, maybe it'll go to the 4th generation. Maybe it'll go to the 5th generation. I don't know.
Yes.
So
it is incredible to think about.
Yeah.
And kind of wild to just to place years ahead.
Yeah.
And what, as being a, 3rd generation owners, what kind of advice would you give to other business owners who've maybe made it, a couple generations? What types of advice could you pass along as sustainable and?
Yeah, I think just being true to yourself, right? It's easy to get caught up in this world with comparing yourselves to whoever else is in your industry and them doing things differently. And if you're trying to keep up with the big corporate world, like we need to change how we do things. But I think for us specifically, staying true to who we are, the values that we have, and keeping those at the forefront of how we operate a business and the decisions we make for the business is what has allowed us to remain in business all these years.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. To add to it is not getting too comfortable or doing things just because they've always done things that way. If we were doing things the same way my dad was doing things 20 years ago, I don't think it would work out. So being able to look at it from a 10, 20 foot view and saying, hey, change is needed and, we do need to adapt. and being able to make those changes and be willing to make those changes. It's a risk. It's scary, but necessary.
Sure. So. Yes. Yeah, that is something. You're just kind of the pioneers now, taking it going forward, and it's kind of exciting.
It is exciting. It's fun.
The unknown. Yeah. So, and if people are interested in checking out your services, what is the best way for them to do so?
Talk to Lisa or Matt or Chris. Otherwise, we've got a website that's really easy to use, Noordyk.com, and you can request a quote, and it just sends us your information. And then, like Will was saying, somebody's going to call and either talk to you on the phone, or they're going to go out and meet with you. It's not going to be just like another number coming through. So
love that personal touch.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on 80 years. We're excited to see where you all go from here. But thank you for making the investment and choosing to open your doors in Walker and such. Continue that. So we appreciate it.
Glad we could. Thanks for having us.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Will and Kara. And thank you for tuning in as well.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Made in Walker podcast. If you have comments or questions about this podcast, or if you have suggestions for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Please drop us an email at podcast@walker.city. Made in Walker is the official podcast of the city of Walker, Michigan. You can find Made in Walker wherever you get your podcasts.